Hello guys, welcome back to my channel Learning Junction. Today I bought a new topic, that is Western literature. Before starting the home's work, it is very important to know few topics. They are about the Western literature, Western epic, Trojan War, Homeric culture and tradition, etc. Today we will understand in detail about the Western literature and the entire history. To begin with, we have to understand what is Western literature. Western literature refers to the body of written work originating from Europe and Western world, including North and South America. It includes various genres, periods, and styles spanning from ancient times to the present. It is also called European literature or the European language of the Western world. Different period consist of different authors, poets, and with regards to writing, like novels, poems, novella, translation, dramas, essays, it's include everything. These are few works and the author of the different stages and types or the topics that they have written. I have mentioned few works under each topic. You can refer with an example. These are the famous works of different centuries like 17, 18, 19, 20th century. First we have a romance that is focused on love and relationship by William Shakespeare. He has written Antony and Cleopatra. Then we have Jane Austen, which was written in 1813. That's a Pride and Prejudice. Next we have a science fiction, that's a futuristic or the scientific themes, that is Frankenstein by Mary Shelley in 1818. Then we have fantasy, that's a magical or mythical elements by John Ruskin. Then we have a mystery, that's a solving a crime or uncovering secrets. Example, that's a mysterious affair at Styles by Agatha Christie. Then we have thriller suspense, that's a high stakes and tensions by John Bachan, that's the 39 steps. With regards to horror, that's a design to scare or unsettle, which was written by Henry James, that's a turn of the screw. Next we have a historical fiction set in a real past era, which was written by Charles Dickens, that's A Tale of Two Cities. Then we have adventure, focuses on epic journeys or quest, that was written by Alexandre Dumas, The Three Musketeers. And the Moby Dick, which was written by Herman Melville. Last, we have literary fiction emphasizing style, character, and the theme over plots by Nathaniel Hawthorne, that's a Scarlet Letter. Western literature is written in different languages. Few of the famous languages I have mentioned over here. Y'all can refer this. Those are the American, British, Canadian, Danish, English, French, German, and so on. With regards to ancient literature, first we have Mesopotamian literature, a modern day Iraq, and the key works are Epic of Gilgamesh. That's one of the world's oldest known epic. Second is Enuma Elish, that's a Babylonian creation myths. And third is a Code of Hammurabi, that's a set of law carved into stones. Second, we have ancient Egyptian literature, that's along the Nile River. The key works are the Pyramid Texts, that's a coffin text. Second, the Book of the Dead. And the third, the Tale of Sinuhe, that the story of exile, identity, and loyalty. Third, we have ancient Hebrew literature, that's ancient Israel. And the key works are the Hebrew Bible, that's the Tanakh, includes Genesis, Exodus, Psalms, Proverbs, etc. Second is the wisdom literature. Fourth, we have ancient Indian literature, that's the Indian subcontinent, that's the language of Sanskrit, Pali, and Prakrit. And the key works are the Vedas, the Mahabharatas and Ramayana, Upanishads, and the Jataka tales, which includes the sacred hymns and rituals of early Hinduism, epic poems filled with gods, heroines, war, and dharma, and the stories of Buddha's past lives. Fifth, we have ancient Chinese literature. That's a classical Chinese, and the key works are I Ching, a book of changes, that's a divination and philosophy, Analects of Confucius, and the Tao Te Ching, and the classical of poetry, that's a folks, hymns, and odes. Sixth, we have ancient Greek literature, that's ancient Greek. The key works are the Homer's epic, the Iliad, the Odyssey, the War, Honor, Fate, and Heroism. Next, we have the tragedies, that's Sophocles and Euripides, that's a moral dilemmas. Next, we have philosophy, that's Plato, Aristotle. Next, we have histories of war and politics. Seventh, we have ancient Roman literature, that's a Latin language. The key works are the Virgil, that's the Aeneid, the Roman values and national identity. Then we have Ovid, that's a myth and transformation. Then we have Seneca, the Stoic philosophy. Then we have Cicero, that's a politics and ethics. Moving further with the medieval literature, this literature is a written work produced in Europe roughly between 500 CE, following the fall of the Western Roman Empire and preceding the Renaissance. This include the religious and secular work of the epic poetry, religious texts, romance, allegory, history plays, and chivalric tales, which was written in different languages like Latin and vernacular languages. Vernacular languages includes the Old English, Old French, Middle English, etc. The main phases of medieval literatures are first, the early medieval period, which was dominated by religious writing and heroic oral tradition, and the Latin was the language of the church and the scholarship. The key works which was done in this period was the Beowulf, that's an Old English epic poem about heroism, monsters, and fate. Second, the Dream of the Rood, that's a Christian allegory with heroic imaginary. And the third is Saint's Life, that's the stories of martyrdom and the miracles. Second, we have high medieval period, which include the vernacular literature such as the French, German, English, and Italian, which is a growth of the country culture and chivalric romance, which was a spread of the scholastic philosophy in universities. Third, we have late medieval period, which was flourishing of allegorical and didactic language with a growing realism in character and social observation, rise of satire and personal voice. The key figures were the Dante Alighieri, that's a divine comedy, which was a journey through hell, purgatory, and heaven. Then we have Geoffrey Chaucer, that's the Canterbury Tales, the satirical stories told by pilgrims from different social classes. Next, we have William Langland, that's Piers Plowman, the visionary allegory of the Christian struggle for a good life. Then we have Christine de Pizarro, the Book of the City of Ladies, which was the defense of the women's wisdom and virtue. Next, we have Renaissance and the early modern period. That's the English Renaissance of the Elizabethan and Jacobean era. But what do we mean by Renaissance? Renaissance means rebirth, a revival of interest in classical Greek and Roman art, science, and literature, which was in the 14th to the early 17th century to the early modern period. It began in Italy and spread through Europe, influencing all areas of life, of science, art, politics, and especially literature. The Italian Renaissance was headed by Dante Alighieri. The Divine Comedy was written by him, that is, the journey through hell, purgatory, and paradise. Next, we have Giovanni Boccaccio. That's a Decameron. That's 100 tales told during the Black Plague, mix of humor, tragedy, and wit. Next, we have French Renaissance. That's headed by Francois, which he has written Gargantua and Pantagruel. That's a satirical novel about giants, critiques of religion and education. Next, we have a Spanish Golden Age. That's Miguel de Cervantes. He has written Don Quixote, often considered the first modern novel. Then we have German Renaissance, which was headed by Martin Luther, which is he has translated the Bible into German, making scriptures accessible. Next, we have the Enlightenment and Neoclassical. The Enlightenment, also called as the Age of Reason, was a European intellectual movement that emphasized reason, science, individualism, and secularism. The important thinkers of the Enlightenment age is Voltaire, John Locke, David Hume, Immanuel Kant. Next, we have Neoclassicism. That's new means new, and classicism means classical, which was inspired by ancient Greece and Roman. The major writers of neoclassical are Alexander Pope. His works are The Rape of the Lock, Essay of Criticism, and Essay of Man. Next, we have Jonathan Swift. That's Gulliver's Travels and A Modest Proposal. Then we have Samuel Johnson, a dictionary of the English language, and the Rambler's Essay. Next, we have the Romanticism. The Romanticism was a literally artistic and intellectual movement that began in late 18th century in Europe and reached its peak in the first half of the 19th century. The British Romanticism is divided into two generations, that is, first generation and second generation. The first generation writers were the Williams Wordsworth. He has written the lyrical ballads, the lines composed a few miles above Tintern Abbey. Then we have Samuel Taylor Coleridge, who has written the Rime of the Ancient Mariner. In second generation, we have Lord Byron, who has written Don Juan. Then we have Percy Shelley, who has written Ode to the West Wind. And third, we have John Keats, who has written Ode to the Nightingale and To Autumn. Few writers of the German Romanticism are Johann Wolfgang, Friedrich Schiller, novelist Hofmanns. Next, we have a French Romanticism, which was headed by Victor Hugo and Alfonso de Lamartine. Next, we have American Romanticism, and the writers who was headed by Ralph Waldo Emerson, Henry David Thoreau, Edgar Allan Poe, Nathaniel Hawthorne, and Herman Melville. Next, we have Realism and Naturalism of mid-19th century. Realism was a literary and artistic movement that focused on depicting everyday life and ordinary people with honesty and accuracy without idealizing or romanticizing them. Few of the French realists are Henri, Gustave Flaubert, and Stendhal, who has written Madame Bovary and The Red and the Black. The Russian realists are Fyodor Dostoevsky, Leo Tolstoy, and Ivan Turgenev, who has written Crime and Punishment, War and Peace, Fathers and Sons. Then we have American Realistic, who has written the novels such as The Adventure of Huckleberry Finn, that's a Mark Twain, The Portrait of a Lady, and The Turn of the Screw, that is Henry James. Then we have The Rise of Silas Lapham, that's a William Dean Howells. The next topic is naturalism. Naturalism is often seen as an extension of realism, but with a more scientific and deterministic outlook, which was influenced by Darwin theory of evolution and social sciences. The major naturalist writers are Emile Zola, who has written Germinal and the Theresa Requiem. And the American naturalist, we have Stephen Crane, who has written The Red Badge of Courage, Maggie, A Girl of the Streets, Theodore Dreiser, The Sister Carrie, and the American Tragedy. Then we have Jack London, The Call of the Wild, and To Build a Fire, Survival. Next, we have modernism. Modernism wasn't just a style, it was a full blown revolt against tradition, reflecting the disorientation and complexity of the rapid changing world. Few of the British modernism were the Virginia Woolf. She has written Mrs. Dalloway and To the Lighthouse, Stream of the Consciousness. Next, we have T.S. Eliot, The Waste Land, the love song of J. Alfred Prufrock. Then we have James Joyce, who has written a portrait of the artist as a young man. Then we have E.M. Forster, A Passage to India. Then we have American modernism, that is F. Scott Fitzgerald, who has written The Great Gatsby. Then we have Ernest Hemingway, who has written The Sun Also Rises. Then we have William Faulkner, who has written The Sound and the Fury. Then we have Gertrude Stein, who has written Tender Buttons. Then we have Marcel Proust, that's the French modernism, who has written In Search of Lost Time. Then we have a global modernism. In that we have the writer Franz Kafka, who has written The Metamorphism. Then we have Maria Rilke, who has written Do You Know Elegies. Then we have Rabindranath Tagore, that's an Indian, who has written Gitanjali. Postmodernism is the age of irony and fragmentation. Postmodernism arose as a response to and against modernism, especially after World War II, where modernism searched for meaning in the chaotic world. The postmodernism authors and their works of the American postmodernism are Thomas Pincoyne, who has written Gravity's Rainbow. Then we have Don DeLillo, who has written White Noise. Then we have Kurt Vonnegut, who has written Slaughterhouse-Five. Then we have Toni Morrison, who has written Beloved. Then we have Paul Auster, who has written the New York Trilogy. With regards to British postmodernism, we have Angela Carter, who has written The Bloody Chamber. Then we have Julian Barnes, who has written Floodbird Parrot. With regards to global postmodernism, we have Salman Rushdie of India, UK, who has written Midnight Children. Then we have Gabriel Garcia Marquez, who has written 100 Years of Solitude. Then we have Haruki Murakami, who has written Kafka on the Shore. Last, we have children's literature. Children's literature includes stories, poems, and text written for or adopted by children, often focusing on moral lessons, adventure, fantasy, and the children's view of the world. First, we have ancient and medieval period. No clear children literature yet. Kids were told oral stories, fables, myths, same as adults. Famous tales such as Aesop's Fables, that's in Greece, moral animal stories. Second is Panchatantra, that is India, clever animal fables. Third, we have Jataka tales, that's a Buddhist, stories of Buddha's past life. Fourth, we have fairy tales and folklore, that's in Europe, told orally, often dark and moralizing. Then second, we have Renaissance and early modern period. Here we have education focused books. Those are children's book began mainly as educational tools. Horn books, wooden paddles with an alphabets and prayers. Primers and catechism taught reading and religion. Shift toward childhood, thinkers like John Locke, 17th century, believed children's minds were like blank slate that could be shaped. Stories began to be written for children, simple, moral, and didactic. Next, we have the 18th century, the birth of children's literature. We have focused the milestone works such as Little Pretty Pocket Books, 1744 by John Newsbury. The History of Little Goody Two Shoes. Fourth, we have the 19th century, the Golden Age. Here we have few collections of books by the different writers. Those are Hans Children Andersen, who has written The Little Mermaid, The Ugly Duckling. Then we have Charles Kingsley, The Water Babies. Then we have Mark Twain, The Adventure of Tom Sawyer and the Huckleberry Finn. Moving further with 20th century, the growth and variety. Here there was a rise of the fantasy and adventure and the stories that reflect social changes. The famous works were by L. Frank Baum, The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. Then we have J. M. Barrie, Peter Pan. Then we have A. A. Milne, that's Winnie the Pooh. Moving further, the mid to late 20th century, that's the innovation and diversity. The few writers who have written the famous books were Roald Dahl, who has written Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Then we have E. M. White, who has written Charlotte Web. Then we have C.S. Lewis, who has written The Chronicles of Narnia. Last, we have the 21st century, that's a global, diverse and multimedia. Here, the famous writers are J.K. Rowling, who has written Harry Potter series. Then we have Rick Riordan, Percy Jackson and the Olympian. Dave Pilkey, who has written Dogman and The Captain Underpants. Thank you guys for watching my video. Please do like, share with your friends who required more information of the Western literature. If you all have any doubts, please do comment on the comment section and don't forget to subscribe.